Chapter 25. Guild? Gareth sat alone with his back to the wall in the old classroom he and Warrian were sharing as living quarters. He would have preferred his own room, of course, but even in the spacious 3-story building, with more survivors coming to both HQ each day seeking shelter, food, and safety, space was quickly becoming a premium. Warrian wasn't such a bad roommate, Gareth decided after a few days. With his 2-decade gamer's education, the necrologist had actually found himself enjoying spending the time between retiring for the night and actually falling asleep on the hard linoleum flooring, discussing the New World mechanics with the gangly assassin. The last remnant of sunlight had left the sky, sinking into the Pacific Ocean on the horizon. But the necrologist could see easily in the pale blue light of the summer sky, pouring in from the room's west-facing window. His cat, Tarzan, a massive black Maine Coon who had spent the majority of the culling sleeping without a worry in the world inside of Gareth's gym bag, had just eaten her weight in salmon and now lay huddled and bloated, purring contently against his leg. Gareth figured it was as good a time as any to allocate the APs he had gained for hitting level 22. He willed his menu panel into semi-transparency in front of him and opened the profile panel. A player profile filled his vision to the right of the center panel that listed the options. An avatar of the 29-year-old gamer took up most of the panel, complete with glowing eyes, useless staff, and pointed hat. To the side of his avatar on the same panel, his stats were listed in a vertical row. Gareth. Race, human. Class, necrologist. Level, 22. Age, 29. Health, 830 out of 830. Base, 720. APs, plus 110. Stamina, 100 out of 100. Mana, 840 out of 840. Base, 720. APs, plus 90. Items, plus 30. EXP to next level, 32,185 out of 75,000. Attributes. Vitality, 83. Each point of vitality provides plus 10 to maximum health. Wisdom, 81. Each point of wisdom provides plus 10 to maximum mana. Regeneration, 40. As a necrologist, each point of regeneration increases mana recovery rate by plus 1.11 per second, health recovery rate by plus 0.25 per second, and recovery from injury by plus 2%. Strength, 5. In addition to making one stronger, each point of strength increases physical attack damage by 1% and reduces damage received from physical attacks by 0.25%. Dexterity, 10. In addition to making one more agile, each point of dexterity improves the critical strike chance of physical attacks by plus 0.3%, the critical strike damage of physical attacks by plus 3%, and improves chance to dodge by plus 0.5%. Unused attribute points, 3. Having not invested a single point into strength, Gareth pondered the usefulness of the stat for a necrologist. It probably wouldn't be much help to him in combat, as all of his damaging spells were mana-dependent and only gained power from wisdom. But after his fatal battle with the Ice Drake Aldrasil, where he had taken advantage of the real-world combat aspect to overcome a foe that was far beyond him, it just seemed negligent to continue ignoring the attribute. It was reasonable to think that a time would arise that his relatively adorable strength wouldn't be enough to take advantage of the real-world aspect of this new Earth. Happy with where his vitality and wisdom attributes stood after the automatic 3 points each for leveling, Gareth distributed all 3 points into strength, then confirmed his decision and felt a surge of power wash over his body. His muscles tightened. He felt the effect of the increased strength immediately, and in a more profound way than he had after boosting any of his other attributes. Satisfied with his decision, Gareth flexed the muscles in his arms and was looking around the room for something heavy to pick up when there was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said, still seated next to the sleeping feline. Gareth knew it was bad manners not to come to the door, and his mother would definitely scold him for it had she been there. But Tarzan was sleeping comfortably, and he didn't want her to hate him. When Warrian opened the door and entered, Gareth cocked his head and raised one eyebrow in question. This is your room too, dude. You don't have to knock. No, thank you. After seeing you get frisky with Aldrasil, I do not want to walk in and see you doing whatever it is you do in here when you're by yourself. That was one time. Gareth's face took on an injured expression. And I was just distributing APs, he said defensively. If I wanted to do something more private, I'd find a private place. Wait, he paused to think about it. You haven't been spanking it in here, have you? I mean, a few times, yeah, Warren admitted unabashed. But as much as I know you want to just sit here and talk about my personal habits, that's not what I came for, Warren said, then stopped. His eyebrows came together as he ran the words through his mind again, then nodded with a wry smile at his own accidental cleverness before continuing. Atheos told me you got a quest and only have 48 hours or some shit. We gonna do it tomorrow? Okay, 1, nice one on the came joke. That was pretty solid. 2, I did get a quest, and yes, I'm going to do it tomorrow, but you don't have to go. It's for the egg, Gareth explained. He noticed the assassin's shoulders slump slightly. You are welcome to come, of course. More the merrier and all that. Well, I'm not doing anyone much good here. Gary and his little construction crew have been handling most of the real to-do items around HQ. And fishing is a hard nope for me. It's just ultra boring, you know? You've never been fishing with Daisy, Gareth laughed. Daisy? Yeah, little blonde girl here with her grandma. Blasted the doors open when we got here. Ringing any bells? Oh, Daisy. Dude, that kid's batshit. You're telling me, Gareth agreed with a smile. Even though the little elementalist didn't like him much, he found that he quite liked when she was around. The shit that came out of her mouth was rich with an innocent hilarity that somehow renewed his hope for humanity. So, what's the quest? Warren asked. Gareth went over the prompt he had received after retrieving the egg from his items panel and told the assassin about the artisan well in Linwood that supposedly had the best drinking water on Earth. Who's going? Warren wanted to know after the necrologist had brought him up to speed. So far, me and you, homie, said Gareth. I was going to head downstairs and see if anyone else wanted to come along. I noticed a dungeon on the map, too. It's actually not far from the well, coincidentally. Maybe we can even kill 2 birds with 1 stone. A dungeon? I thought the only dungeon near us was the Space Needle, the Tower of something or other. That's the only capital D dungeon near us, yeah. I saw a handful of lowercase d dungeons around, though, Gareth explained. It's probably a good idea to get some gear and level up a bit in a few of the lowercase ones before the Space Needle anyways. The one I have in mind is actually at the Alderwood Mall. Bonus! Too bad that sushi place is probably down for repairs. Right? You want to do some recruiting with me? Gareth asked. Max party size is 5 for the little D dungeons. Atheos will probably want to come, but we'll want to add some diversity to the group. I'm thinking we will probably want a tank and healer to round out the group. Prob's a good idea, the assassin agreed. Tarzan meowed haughtily as the necrologist got to his feet. I'm sorry, he apologized. I can't just sit there until you're done napping. You sleep like 18 hours a day. The fluffy black cat pinned her ears back and looked away from Gareth, mortally offended. He rolled his eyes at her, then turned and left the room, following Warren down the corridor and into the main hall of the building. Gary's child labor construction crew had dragged all the cushioned furnishings, originally placed throughout the converted school building, into the large open main hall, and it had become somewhat of a hangout locale for members of the band. Gareth scanned the crowded room trying to locate his old neighbor Sharon. Sharon was 78 years old and the saltiest, fussiest old lady he had ever met. She was sweet deep down, probably. When Sharon had chosen her class, a naturist, just before the culling, her decrepit body had transformed, erasing the damage that time had done and restored the bitter old bird's body to peak condition. His 78-year-old neighbor now had the body of a beautiful young lady in the prime of her life, though her personality had not changed in the slightest. Gareth was speechless at the time, even more so when Mark, a mid-30s overweight banker of some type that had lived on the same floor that Gareth and Sharon did, witnessed her transformation and also chose the naturist class in hopes of a similar transformation, but nothing happened. After the culling, Gareth posted a forum in the World panel to see if anyone else had seen or experienced a transformation like Sharon's. He learned that it had actually happened to anyone whose vitality would have been below 5 before choosing a class. As 5 was the base vitality for level 1 of each class, those whose vitality had increased upon choosing a class also experienced a transformation, so that their body would match up with their attributes. It all seemed a bit heady for Gareth, but he supposed it made sense, especially after feeling the increased strength attribute firsthand. After all, having increased strength or dexterity with 70-plus-year-old joints and ligaments could definitely spell disaster. When he finally located Sharon, Gareth was not surprised to find her hanging out with Daisy's gran next to the fireplace. It was a comfortable 73 degrees inside the old brick building, but the two of them were cozily lounging a few feet from the blazing fireplace in the center of the main hall. The wooden tops of school desks work fairly well doubling as firewood, as it turns out. Gareth and Warren sank into a vacant couch next to the two old ladies. The necrologist couldn't help noticing that the discussion going on just behind the couch, where a large group of raid members were standing in a circle, ended abruptly as they sat. He looked curiously over his shoulder and caught the eyes of several people staring at him, then quickly looking away when they made eye contact, and Gareth couldn't help feeling like he had been the subject of their conversation. The raid leader was more than a bit curious, but opted to dismiss it and just do what he came to do. Before he could approach the topic of the dungeon, Sharon had a few words for him.
"I suppose you're here to ask for my help with something,"
she accused, setting her dinner plate on a side table next to the love seat she had claimed as her own. The plate was spotless. Her appetite, it appeared, had returned with her vitality. Daisy's gran, whose real name Gareth didn't know because the nameplate affixed to her head only said Gran, on the other hand, had not eaten at all. A large hunk of beautiful, fire-charred salmon sat untouched next to her daily ration of what the military passed off as bacon and hash browns. "Gran," Gareth said, "you haven't touched your food again. You need to keep up your strength."
"Oh, I'm not very hungry, but that is very sweet of you to notice, young man,"
she replied feebly without looking up from the fire. "It's been almost a week, and I haven't seen you eat at all. It isn't healthy. You're really starting to worry Daisy. Did you know she sent a fireball into the ocean while fishing today because she wasn't getting any bites? She knows you won't eat the rations, so she went fishing with Gary and the boys to get you something else," Gareth explained, concerned. "Maybe if you just pick your class, you'll feel better. I mean, look at Sharon. She's 78.
"And never felt better,"
Sharon agreed, nodding in the same slow manner she had when her body was old.
"But you'll never get anywhere with this one, young man. Believe me, I've been trying to convince her of the same. She won't listen."